Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today we're going to talk about dark cities, cyberpunk, and that sort of thing in our tabletop role playing experience. And we're going to talk about other types of cities and why it is that sometimes these thematic elements return back to us, even if you claim that you're not a cyberpunk fan. Why is this kind of thematic element? Why is this genre such a pull for us creatives in the tabletop role playing community and outside of that, of course, artistically, novelists, and why we have such a fascination with it? So, um, cyberpunk isn't alone in terms of its thematic elements because so many other types of genre and themes draw us back in. Utopian elements like Star Trek draw us in. The utopian elements are like impossible societies that are perfect for us because it allows us to have a mirror into other realms and being able to allow us to look at ourselves through the lens of outsiders and alien contact. And then there's post-apocalyptic settings that always draws us in too. And we can go on and on, but we're going to talk about cyberpunk and dark cities and why they're cool and why there's a good reason, at least for my armchair experience, as to why these things draw us in. So first of all, there's some visual and themes that come along with cyberpunk. You gotta have moist streets and neon lights. I don't know why. There's this propensity to have random holographic and display windows of consumerism everywhere. There's a good reason for it. And moistened, darkened streets, wet and slick. And uh, that theme, there's something uh, visceral about that, the moist streets idea. There's rain is something that seems to get in you if you're in it too long, that it had rained, it is raining or will rain. And it's not just rain, but it's the moisture. It's the scum that drips down the walls and comes under your feet. It's the when something is wet and moist, there's also this idea that it's going to rub off on you and you don't know what's there, especially when it sits there too much. And also rain and water washes away things, whether it washes away dirt and grime. And thematically, we've seen many movies. How many funeral scenes have we seen where it's raining? Because it's a stand-in for our tears, our sorrows. That rain is a backdrop for the way we feel, and that sadness that it follows our main protagonist characters around. Also, cyberpunk is high technology and our own future mixed with noir. So having dark corners, having the stark neon lights. Very rarely do we have brightly illuminated regions unless you're under those bright xenon bulbs from black helicopters and floating cars and the stark lights from corporate security and military. You almost never see clean, brightly lit outdoor areas. Sure, you may have laboratories and hallways and things, but outside, almost never. And it's a society built on the dregs built on top of each other. Another thing about cyberpunk is ubiquitous technology. So there's a propensity to have commonplace technologies that are high tech but rare today. So video screens everywhere, holographic things everywhere, people able to communicate over long distances very instantly, individuals with various cybernetic replacement parts just hanging on corners, lots of commonalities in technology that aren't just for our main characters but for everybody else. And that also goes to the idea of the rarity today, but we see it in the future as just no big thing, like junkyards filled with I don't know, robots and androids that you could just gather together in an empty warehouse with stolen energy and start to kit bash them together and things of that nature. Um, the mixing of high technology and the skills necessary to use them with street knowledge. Today, there sometimes seems like there's a hard definition between the haves and have-nots, and the haves seem to hold all the knowledge and all the technology and all the funds. And in cyberpunk, when that stuff trickles down into the lower class individuals, you'll see brain surgeon level individuals with like face tats and a cyber arm in a dirty warehouse using I don't know, a device that somehow makes everything cleanly, even though they're smoking and eating a sandwich while they're doing major open body surgery, replacing someone's arm with the cybernetic one they you know sandblasted or something, and or 3D printed and are attaching to their arm uh, while having conversations about the latest entertainer or something like that. So cyberpunk does mix a lot of like the dichotomy of the dregs, the people that those who know that live in lower class neighborhoods, the trashy ghetto, downtrodden neighborhoods, know that there are people in those neighborhoods that are brilliant, that are exceptional in their skills, that have a propensity to they have math skills. They're very charismatic, and if only given the opportunity, they would have risen high levels. That Ripper Doc that is replacing people's body parts with cybernetics in an old warehouse probably would have been a high-paid brain surgeon or cosmetic surgeon or something had their life just turned out differently. And um, the other thing about cyberpunk is it allows us to tell a lot of the extremities of stories in a very tight space. So these mega cities, super tall towers surrounded by concrete and steel and neon, brings everything tightly packed. So you can have many stories about romance and adventure and heists and criminal underworld and discovery of new cultures, whether it's in the undercity or in discovering AI or having VR interactions with people and things like that. It's like a tight space where you can tell all those stories in one small location. Now, sure, in some cyberpunk worlds, do they travel from Japan to Germany to Russia to South America? Yes, those stories are told. But a lot of times, like the classic Cyberpunk 2020, it's told in Night City, and all those stories can happen in these small confined spaces. And if you're a storyteller and you really don't want to know what life is like in 30 other countries, you can pick your own city and make it into a megalopolis, a giant arcology or something of that nature. And you can tell those stories in a very tight, compact space. And so cyberpunk also, those dark cities allow us to tell those stories in without having to. We can get maps and use culture and fashion and entertainment that's familiar to us with a sprinkle of high tech on top, and tell the exact same stories over and over and over again in these locations, and yet still find new places to find. Maybe there's a strange gang that seems to be like urban tribalists or something, or there are AI robots that are like a hive mind trying to hide after escaping from a mega corporation, and you can go on and on, where our PCs can discover these things within a city that's constantly a mystery to them, yet very familiar. Something else that's really cool about dark cities is that for anyone who has visited or lives in a major metropolis, because of the high population and the way giant cities are formed, there's a psychological element of a major city where the residents of those places don't really see the outside world in the same context. As someone who lived on the East Coast, tri-state area, Philadelphia, Jersey and Delaware were our tri-state area, and I was short distance away from New York, Boston to the north, and then uh, lower parts of Delaware and North Carolina and Baltimore, um, and Maryland and South Carolina to the south. Easy driving distance. It was like one big giant mega city. You could almost drive and not realize you're even going to another city. Um, d- Despite the fact that you're traveling over bridges and highways and things, it just went from one concrete and steel place to another concrete and steel place. And that there's a mental um turtling that happens in people that can't imagine themselves ever leaving, no matter how bad it gets. And there's a number of reasons for this when people live in a community and they can't imagine themselves leaving. One of those is struggle culture, and this isn't bad, but there is this um, behavioral thing that when you struggle through a thing, you have an identity with other people who struggle through the same uh, experiences, and you have an identity with them, sometimes to the point of not even having to say anything. um, I know in Philly sometimes you would be in locations where you felt out of sorts, and you would look around and you see somebody that looks and kind of acts like you, and you give them like the little chin head nod, like so, and they know, and you don't have to say anything. Like you just look at each other like, yeah, yeah, not only do we not belong here, but I get that feeling that you get, right? And sometimes we get that when we are similar religions or similar ethnic groups or similar backgrounds, and people that grow up in mega cities today sometimes can feel that way when you go to the outskirts or you travel to other countries or things like that, that you look around for familiar faces and experiences, and you look over and go, yeah. Especially if there are people um, who are far more well off, it seems, than you, because you went through the struggle. And turning your back on, escaping the struggle is always a goal, but there's also the turning your back on those who are struggling. And there's this propensity to want to belong to that group. Despite the fact that life is terrible, you can look at the other people with terrible lives and go, yeah, we struggle, we understand. um, Here in the States, to give an analogy, uh, I grew up in the era of government cheese. Side note for those who haven't grown up with this, either you're outside the states or you're not of the age to remember this, but there was a period of time when the United States released storage foods. Don't ask, because this is during the 80s. And when we released these storage foods, they released like powdered milk and things like that. But one of the big things was these big block government cheese things. And during the 80s, and I'm going to even find out if there's even any pictures of there it is. And the computer even heard me. And um, these big blocks of government cheese made storage foods, of course, were came about because um, government, like our government, wanted to ensure that were there ever to be a food shortage or fuel shortage or housing shortage or clothing shortage, that there was a possibility to be able to have that for the population, just in case, just like medicine and things of that nature. Now, whether they are continuing to do these things and what levels they are, that's a separate story. But in this context, they released cheese, and that cheese, despite the fact that it had a long shelf life, like a really long shelf life, um, it made the best grilled cheese sandwiches. Sorry, but it did. And um, yeah, this government cheese, there is Ronald Reagan with the government cheese. This government cheese was handed out, and many people stood in long lines for this government cheese, and it was made with everything. For anything you could put cheese in, and it was block cheese. It wasn't pre-sliced. It was just a big block of cheese, and Wow, it was crazy good. It was great. At least that's how we remembered it. I guess in hindsight, we might look back at it and say it's booty, but today, yeah, it was. They released government cheese out of government cheese vaults, and that's just a small example of um, this idea of having a collective knowledge about something even while struggling with that same thing. So cyberpunk allows us to do a lot of that stuff in a very confined space. um, and lastly, there is a urban tribalism that happens in cyberpunk, just like post-apocalyptic natures, where um, yeah, Drew says, growing up in Berlin, even though I barely got to experience the Cold War, had my parents also have some storage food at home. And here in the States, there was a similar mentality with during the Great Depression. And I remember my grandparents having, because when they grew up, they were young at the time, and there was a mentality of like saving money. It was the equivalent of stuffing your mattress with money. Like, don't trust the banks. You have to save money in jars and stuffing your mattress and things like that, hiding money around the house. And hey Z, that seemed to be a collectivism with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all want to feel like we belong to a group or a location, or feel like we have some commonality amongst the herd. We're social creatures themselves. And in cyberpunk, the necessity, the survivalism to be part of a tribe is very important, even if that tribe are corporate leaders or ex-military mercenaries or hackers or something like that. Cyberpunk really draws that in. Like, you're either a badass to survive on your own, or there's something wrong with you. Like, why are you alone? You should be with a gang. And the recruitment in gangs in cyberpunk and real world is kind of very much the same thing in cyberpunk amongst all the different factions, right? Like, even in the movie RoboCop really exemplified this. Let's see, the board room in RoboCop. Um, there's some funny scenes, really hilariously violent scenes that happen in the boardroom in RoboCop, and in that movie, and that's like a visual representation of like being a corporate leader. Like, oh, of course there's going to be death and destruction in the boardroom and cutthroat conversations in the men's room and things like that. Like, you ain't a corporate liaison unless you are here to, literally having the possibility of dying in a boardroom because of some accident or some project you want to show, and willing to cut people's throats when you're in the restroom, um, calling your boss, Richard Head, things like that. Teacher's day off. Oh, I only work one job today. Hey Z, well, congratulations there. I still have a regular day at work. Today I get political days off. I don't get religious days off. Drew says it's general a holy day here in Germany. Okay, had been reading my copy of Heroin's Labyrinth before the stream and will continue afterwards. Me too. Me too. I left a review on Amazon here, and I'm reading. It's an easy read. It's pretty cool. It's half storytelling, half tarot card-ish. The way the chapters are divided, it's kind of cool. I'm liking it. I'm also I'm also in the afterwards at the end of the book. So I have a bit of a shout out. I appreciate Doug for putting that in there. He also put in role playing as one of the different types of creative influences in that book for literary artists and such. So he ended up putting that in there simply because of the video that I did. I didn't know I was one of the literally first persons to put a video out about his book that had no relationship to him or his book, having never read the book. So I'm pretty proud of that. And I was his first interview too. Not first interview period, first interview as an outsider. I was really impressed by that. So I of course am making a 12-point story structure based off the journey in the labyrinth for role playing. So I'll be doing that as well. So I actually do have it, but I want to make it a it's 12 points now. I'm gonna turn it up to 144 different story elements, but whatever the case may be. I'm going to share something about Obsidian Star at the end of this discussion as well. So yeah, corporate boardrooms, just as lethal as being in a street gang in Cyberpunk, and so pretty fun, pretty horrible, but also fun. And um, I'll cap it off with this with Cyberpunk as well. There is a um, there's the unwritten code in Cyberpunk that you have to be cool. The language, the slang, the fashion, the swag, if you will, is part of cyberpunk. There's a badassery that you have to carry yourself with when you walk in the streets of cyberpunk that can be lost a little bit when it comes to storytelling. That it's just as important to wear the right thing or to know the right people or to say the right thing or to not say anything that is cool. Like for example, in The Expanse, there's a season of The Expanse television show where our one of our favorite characters, Amos, our favorite sociopath, who desires to have ethics and morality and latches on to other people to give himself some sense of ethics and morality. Um, another famous scene with Amos is the don't do it, put the gun down. He doesn't say it, but he's like, nope, you're not that guy. And then he lets that person walk out the door, locks the door, and faces another guy. He's like, oh, but I am that guy, right? And it's really cool because you're like, he really cared for this one other person. He's like, he shouldn't be a murderer. He's not built for that. You're not, this isn't a thing that you can do. But me, oh hell, I can get medieval in your ass and I'm gonna do it. And I kind of wished in that scene they almost didn't let us hear what happened. I almost wish they let it trail off and been like, hey, Amos, what were you doing for 5 hours? And he's like, getting a workout. Yeah. Zamar says, a corporation just a legal gang in that situation? And possibly in real life, honestly? Hell yeah. I mean, let's be honest. In a gang, you get jumped into a gang, right? That they beat your ass, and it's a provement of you're one of us. You've been beaten down to the bottom, and now you're one of us. In the corporate world, I guarantee you, you know how they know that you're part of them, part of the group, and not part of the group? They make you fire people. I work for the Postal Service, and I know for a fact there are managers and supervisors that do not rise up in level unless they can write people up and fire them. They do not rise any higher than that unless you can prove that. You have to go through the crucible to be acquired, just like military, right? You have to go through basic training, and then when you go through that, you go through advanced training. And the higher level you go in the military, the harder the crucible is until you pass by it. And then once you cross that crucible, you start at zero. Now you're one of us. Now you finally proved it. Martial arts is the same thing. You have different belt levels until myself, I'm a third degree black belt, and I didn't get to black belt level until I realized I hadn't gotten to zero level yet. That all the training and all the stuff got me to the point where I can finally start learning what it really is about. Whereas you get your black belt, and by the time there's a there's a sociological training part of martial arts where once you realize the goal is not the black belt, and it doesn't matter if you get it or not, that's when you get it. If that makes, it's really weird to say that, but that makes sense. Because in the beginning, it's like, I want my black belt, I want to get it. And then right when you're about to crest that level, you're like, it doesn't matter. I'll just wear my white belt. And a lot of black belts will do that. They'll train in like the corners and backgrounds. And if you're really good, you'll just wear your white belt so everybody leaves you alone and exercise, get warmed up, nobody bothers you, and then you start to wear your real black belt. I actually have 2 black belts. Not 2 as in ranking, I have my workout belt, which is stained, sweat stained, wrung out. I mean, it's dirty. It's like it's the belt that I wear when training, and then I have my dress belt that has the three stripes on it. That's, it's like it's thicker, it looks good, it's shiny, it's folded up, with things like that. Yeah, yeah. And Drew, you're absolutely right, and that's a big part of cyberpunk. Some people might call it initiation. I would call it indoctrination. Oh, it is. It is. It's necessary, unfortunately, to for a lot of these organizations to break you down to build you up. Yeah, yeah. And what is the difference between indoctrination and training? Well, the difference is what happens if you just say no, if you refuse. Training, you can train to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a medical assistant. You could train with plumbing and electric systems. I'm trying to think of the most common trainings, and you can take that anywhere, and no one will hurt you or force you to think a certain way when you take that knowledge with you somewhere else. But when you're part of it, when you're indoctrinated, there's an expectation that where are you going? What are you doing with that information? Who says that despite the fact that we trained you, that we brought you in, that we accepted you, that are you seriously going somewhere else with that? You belong to us. Now, it might not be said that way. It might not be said that way, but guaranteed the ramifications of it mean that you will suffer because of your perceived failures. Look at politics today. Yeah, I'm gonna bring it up. Think of any political group for any reason. Now, imagine yourself in that political group. Now, imagine yourself in that political group and disagreeing with any doctrine they have to say. What reaction do they have? If at some point someone somewhere along the way um, calls for your death, immediate expulsion, and or violence against you, you first of all, whatever group you're thinking of is complete bullshit, and that's most of them. But the other one is a lot of times that's an insular, fragile ego part of the group too. You can't leave because what if other people leave? How can you leave our group? That's how cults start, right? Leaving, why would you want to? Isn't there something wrong with you? Didn't we just love bomb you? you know? Yeah. Drew says, I like more the underdogs in cyberpunk. Hell yeah. The rebels against the system that unite, not because to grasp power, but out of sheer necessity. Yeah. A very common terminology back in William Gibson, who many feel is like the grandfather of the godfather of cyberpunk, coined the many terms, and one of those was, climbing up the gravity well. It was always looking up into the sky, and a common visual depiction of cyberpunk are mega towers, and the rebels are always looking up into the sky at the rich, the powerful, the influential, the famous, who literally sit up on high looking down on the lower folk. And how many penthouses, how many giant towers are like phallic symbols dedicated to corporate corporate superiority and narcissism, right? Now, sure, maybe we have other versions to build these things, like maybe large flat buildings instead of large towers. But let's be honest, most CEOs, uh, uh, arrogant CEOs, love to get that top floor, the top floor. As a matter of fact, there are if you take a look at the New York skyline, they've been building these like needle-like micro towers around Central Park that are like apartments and condos that are multi-million dollar, double digit, even up to 3-digit million-dollar condos that people own and don't live in them. It's crazy, but yes, uh, it's wild. And yes, I said phallic symbols because that's really what they are. Let's be honest. That's what they are. And it's so much indoctrinate. Like, let's talk about corporations and politics and things. It's so indoctrinating that um, women are forced to deny their nature to have to be part of the patriarchal necessity of corporate advancement in the first place, right? They can't even be ladies. They gotta be asshole men just like the other dudes. And let's be honest. It's we don't have dragons to slay, so what else are we going to kill? And that means killing people financially and through status and that kind of thing. Um, and it's just as, many people point at Hollywood as Holly weird, and it is exactly the same thing, right? It's the one side is exactly like the other side. Yeah. Drew says, reminds me of American Psycho. That showed that mentality rather well. Oh, hell yeah. American Psycho is a dark classic, and it is excellent. It is an excellent movie. It's very dark, and some would say the movie has a strange it is allegorical. So when the movie ends, you might be scratching your head like, did this movie actually have a plot? There are elements in it where like characters ignore blatantly psychopathic tendencies of our main character, but the book was a big deal, and it came about like it was in the era of the other rebellious movie, Fight Club came out about that time, and Wolf of Wall, not Wolf. Well, Wolf of Wall Street is included in that, but Wall Street, the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, Greed is Good, was about that period of time. We're talking about corporate entities, but let's flip it on its head and talk about the rebels in Cyberpunk. Yes, I'm talking about belonging to factions, and what happens in Cyberpunk is our main characters are pretty much loners. They're badasses on their own, and in a small way, and not too small way, being a loner in a world where you really can't survive if you don't belong to a faction makes you unique, and there's a strong sense of jealousy that comes about from being a loner. But Cyberpunk, much like post-apocalyptic stories, I'm looking at you, Mad Max, really delves into like, why are you a loner? Is there a reason? Are you carrying around trauma? Is there something secret you're hiding? Are you running away from your problems? Are you running towards a thing? Are you on a mission? And many times it is you get, if you could break it down into the yin and yang of a story character, either a cyberpunk character is devoid of purpose. They are by themselves because they find no purpose in being with anyone else. They are purposeless, aimless, and they find a mission. Amos in The Expanse is a perfect example of a character that finds a mission, even if that mission is somebody else's. They find something to latch onto, and they're rejuved. They're given new life. In some ways, it is like the noir detective, because cyberpunk and noir storylines kind of run very similar, where you have a character who's kind of burnt out and done with everything. They've seen it, they've done it. They don't have a mission, and then somehow a mission falls in their lap. Very commonly, there might be a lone wolf and cub situation. Our combat hardened, sadomasochistic, brutalistic hero is tasked with protecting the innocent. We saw that in The Creator, where our character's running around with an AI robot that looks like a child, and many characters are given the lone wolf and cub thing. We also have another character that is motivated by nothing but purpose, revenge, jealousy, an unfulfilled mission. They might be filled with romance and love to get back to a loved one. They are filled with clawing back their humanity that they've lost on this mission, but they are on a mission, and there's no one and nothing that can stand in their way. They are the They are the John Wick. They are the um, Ray Donovans. They are the television show Ray Donovan. They are the um, man with a gun. And there's sure, do they have these rather um, tangential, paper thin relationships with other people? Sure. But there's a gravity around these characters that are on such a mission. They don't need anyone, don't want anyone, and there's nothing that can stop them. And even that becomes an energy, a gravity, a power that is unseen in a world where there's so many things that can distract you, so many addictive psychotropic drugs and VR systems and distractions that can very easily place you in your home, sitting in a pool of your own drool and body fluids, um, watching something that tickles your pleasure centers. And these characters are not swayed by that. They're not drawn by it. They refuse to engage in their addictions and distractions. Yeah, are they distracted every once in a while? Maybe by a loved one or a family member or an unrequited love or something. Yeah, but then they put that aside, they stick it in their back pocket, and they move on. And so those two type of characters really have motivations in cyberpunk. And the dark light, the neon versus the shadows, the dankness and the dankness, the rust, the corrosion, the trash piles, the downtrodden, and the dichotomy between that and the clean, the slick, the beautiful people in the upper world. Those characters also seem like the same thing. And a lot of times there's bring up the expansive yet once again, our character Amos talks about the churn. And there is this churn of people who are at the highest levels who get thrown down to the bottom and have to work their way back up, just like the characters at bottom try to work their way up to the highest levels, only to get thrown back down again, trying to work up that gravity well. Zamora says the ability to survive in the complexities of today within society, but without the aid of it, shows a superhuman ability. Oh yeah. Moreso is a cyberpunk setting due to the extreme interconnectedness. And that's why when people, I find it ironic that people who love one, this is an example, who love one political candidate think the other political candidate is the most horrible thing in the world. And I'm thinking in my head, you do realize to become a political candidate of high levels, you have to do things no one else is willing to do. You have to make deals and sell parts of your soul off to achieve a higher level. Otherwise, there's no way to rise above that level simply because of the indoctrination of all the other people who did the exact same thing, right? And so I'm just like, your political candidate is just as worse as the other one. Just because they point a finger, it's what is the intellectual fallacies? There's all kinds of different ones like straw man and stuff like that. And I call it the black and white fallacy, where because one person points at someone else's fallacies, the fallacy is thinking that the person that points is pure, and that's not the case. Yeah. For instance, bread is a staple of food today, but how many people do you know how to make bread from seed? Very few of us, including me. Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, it bothers me that I don't have as many survival skills as I wish I did, or rather the practical application of them. So I have some intellectual knowledge, but I don't have the practicality of it, which upsets me a little bit. Yeah, that's not including baking it without a pre-made oven and sourcing the necessities for the fire. And again, we've talked about preppers here on the channel before. Maybe we might do a matter of fact, we'll do an episode of preppers and the various types of preppers. Like there's civil unrest preppers, seed and not bioconservative, bio storage preppers. There are there's fall of government preppers. There's economic downfall preppers. There's nuclear war atomic, biological, chemical weapon preppers. There are weapon I want to call like armory and ordnance preppers and all of that kind of stuff, right? Um, yeah, there's all. I mean, there's some preppers that are like you're going to need gold because gold is a standard for trade and money. Whereas there's others that like no, you're going to need seed and the ability to build shelter. Where there's even other preppers that are like you're going to need a bunker and clean air and things like that. Zamar says, I agree there. I can source meat from a kill, but I am not the best at making that kill from a non-tamed pre-injured animal, and I can't make the necessities to cook it. Yeah. And there's different there are different levels of like survival videos out there. We know that that a lot of those survival videos are kind of like staged, but yeah, but there are some who are like, oh, I have nothing but a knife and a stick, and then they make a forge to make a weapon, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty incredible. Those kind of videos are a little bit like but yeah, just having a go bag and like being able to hunt and trap animals and gather food and knowing what to eat and what not to eat. Although and we could talk about this a lot. Like I remember someone said, don't eat anything animals don't eat is a good thing. There's also a way to test for whether foods are good or bad for you. It's like smell it. If you have if you smell something, a plant that makes you want to regurgitate, don't eat it. And then you place a little bit in your mouth and you wait to see if you have an allergic reaction to it. And then you chew it and you find out. It's like you go through stages and things like that. It's really different. I actually included it in survival, a survival supplement that's barely 5th edition, but it's part of the cinematic environs. But anyway, that's that. I haven't plugged myself like that in a while. Thank you there, Z. So cyberpunk itself is, I think it also draws us in because we as humans are excellent at making predictions, horrible at being correct. Yeah. For humans, don't eat what a carnivore won't touch. Plants are much trickier. Yep. Although I guess you could follow like herbivores and omnivores and see what they eat. But I don't know if you could follow that. But it's very simplistic to say don't eat something that other animals won't eat. But but the how do I say this? The cyberpunk is an exploration of prediction, and like I say, humans are excellent at making predictions, horrible at being correct. And so we've been, in cyberpunk in the 80s, we were completely confident in what overpopulated, downtrodden cities would be with corporate overlords. And not that we're not too far away from that. The idea of like giant mega cities being built up into, a mile high and further piercing the clouds and things like that. While that hasn't happened physically, many of us do feel that we are living in that kind of world. And cyberpunk is basically all of that combined together. It is corporate overreach. It is street gangs run amok. It is literally the commodification of the human body as a price point. Most things are for sale in cyberpunk, whether it's by money or favors. And so, yeah, it's crazy. I'm with you, Z, because there's some other things I think that we are crazy and whoever discovered potatoes are edible was crazy. Same with Aki. Both will kill you if eaten at the wrong time or make you wish it did. Yes, I say the same thing about that poison blowfish damn thing, tigerfish or something. I'm like, which human, the first human, you got that. I forgive you because you were probably hungry or starving and said, what would this taste like? Second and on, I'm just like, why would you eat that? Like, really? Because it made your face explode, right? Like somebody in there went, 5 of my friends died, but I bet I could really eat this and survive, I'm looking at you, Ghost Peppers. Yeah, any food that makes you lose calories and uh it lose a couple of ounces of fluid from your body due to sweat is crazy. Like who thought who th- any meal that tops you off on ass fuel is like it's crazy. Like why would you do that? What human being so yeah, humanity, cyberpunk is kind of filled with that too. Like why would humans willingly cut their body parts off to exchange it with artificial limbs? Um, Part of it is survival, the necessity of the commodification of the biologic, the human body, to sell literally selling your soul is represented by selling off your body parts. It's also the in in Germany it's currywurst 7 minute. I think here we call it not bratwurst, um, liverwurst, something like that. Yeah, yeah, but anyway, it's a similar mystery meat. Some would say spam is in that category, but I would put for me it's what's the meat I grew up with? Scrapple scrapple meat. Um, for me, it's Scrapple. I grew up with Scrapple, and if you knew what was in Scrapple, you would be like, "Wait, what?" It's a very common breakfast meat um, among the Amish and Quaker and Mennonite community in central Pennsylvania and even here in Ohio. And most people here, like in Ohio, have never heard of Scrapple. Uh, it looks like a gray. There we go. It looks like a gray block of meat, which it shouldn't look gray, and meat shouldn't be square shaped like that. But yeah, Pennsylvania Dutch scrapple recipe. Yeah. Woo. Yeah. I mean, to me, it tastes excellent. To me, it's prime. But others, you don't want to know how the literal sausage is made. Yeah, currywurst is special type of sausage with curry seasoning. Yes, curry seasoning. Okay, and you can buy with. I'm going to mispronounce this. 7 million SHU. What is that monetary thing? It is so hot that it is crazy as raccoon. You mean? Sorry, you gave me this image of a raccoon trying to crawl its way out of somebody's sphincter. I don't know why it came to mind. Uh, Maybe I should look that up. Let's see. Let's see if we can find an image of that. Raccoon crawling out of a sphincter. Let's see if we can find a video, an image of this. Let's see. Nope, no raccoons. We got plenty of raccoons. Not too many crawling out of sphincters. Oh, oh well. I was gonna see if that was not that you have a real one, but like crawling out of like a plastic bag or something like that. Yeah. Zamar says that makes me think. What is food like in cyberpunk? Yes, yes, people starving, trying to make scraps work, but that's just soul food. Yes. Funny that you say that. Many. Hmm. So many of the staple foods today, soul food you brought up, um, barbecue is another one. Come on, you guys. I know you guys know this. Po' boy sandwiches is one. Wick sandwiches is another one. What I'm talking about with certain types of foods and meals are foods that the lowest of the low had to eat to become a staple in their diet. While we know barbecue is low and slow, it's cooked low and slow, meaning like low heat for long periods of time. Um, so because the meat technically was the leftovers and it was so tough to eat that in order to eat it, similar to soul foods, it was the leftover foods. And so you couldn't just cook it in 10, 15, 20 minutes and just eat it. You had to cook it low and slow and come up with techniques to get this food. You had to cook it 14 hours and smoke it to get it to crumble, to get it soft enough. So, because ribs were not, um, and you could not do that. Lecrae says, I eat potatoes, only potatoes. I lost 100 pounds in 60 days. Damn, isn't that too quick? 100 pounds in 60 days. I'm losing weight and I'm doing keto. I'm doing the opposite. I'm not eating carbs. So it's pretty much like fish, chicken, meat, and vegetables, fruits, and yeah. And soul foods are, yes, Z makes a good point here. Z said, I said soul food, but much of any culture's cultural food is basically poor people food. Yep. That have survived to become ubiquitous to a culture and an easy import to outside cultures. Yes. Today, like here in the States, I classify barbecue as that version where barbecue was really just like the lowest of the low food. What is it? Soul food in black cultures, like greens, you had to make greens. Chitlins, chitlins is another one that the horrible smell of cooking them, because it was basically stomach intestine. I think it's pig or cow intestine. Anyway, you have to boil it for double-digit hours to get it to soften up enough. Yeah. It's crazy. And those foods now, it has risen up and become a staple and things like that. But yeah, at the time, Lecrae says Lecrae says Pen Gelat lost it also. It is good if you are under doctor control. Haggis. There's another one that I mean, I'm tangentially familiar with. I've never tasted it, but I heard haggis can be that way. Yeah. Zamar says can be either, but traditionally pig intestines. Yeah. Chitlins. Yeah, chitlins. Yeah, there's some pretty horrible things. I think in cyberpunk, I'm going to describe something pretty horrible in cyberpunk. Recycled foods and alcohols is a big thing. Unclean alcoholic and water beverages, basically Great says try it, it's so good. Haggis. Yeah, try it, it's so good. Again, sometimes you have to grow up with it. Like I've got Scrapple here up on the page. I don't know if other people would like it, especially when you find out what it's made out of. Drew says, I get really hungry with all that food talk. Me too. Me too. I'm literally like, I'm going to order myself some Scrapple because I can't find it anywhere here in Ohio. I might have to have it imported or something. But yeah, the foods in cyberpunk are often like soy cubes and extruded meats and hyper genetically modified kinds of things. Let me see if we can get some images of soy meats and let's see, extruded meat by. Let's see, we get some nasty images of some extruded meats. Oh, there's no good. Oh man, there's no really good images. There's no like I just imagine I don't know why I imagine this in cyberpunk. I imagine someone taking like a like a hand crank, and it's getting like pushed out of like an extrusion machine. Okay, there we go. There's an extrusion machine. Stuff goes in and gets extruded on the outside. There it is. Preconditioned with fat and oil, plant protein, water, twin screw extruder, cooling die, texturized vegetable chunks right at the end. Love it, gotta love it. But yeah, cyberpunk has been very much filled with like the urbanized version of astronaut foods. Like it's just nothing but a soy brick, or flavored with your, squeeze on top of it your favorite flavor, and it, that kind of thing. And then real food, like a real apple or an orange or a real steak or real vegetables become they are not the norm. It is it is the exception to the rule. And in cyberpunk, many times there's like an urban tribalism where I remember running a game and my friends were amazed when they found an abandoned arcology and a gang took it over. And on the roof, they had these tanks filled with rainwater, and they were raising fish, farming fish on the roof, and they had like shrimp and fish, and they used the rainwater pouring down from the rooftop that would pour down into other lower levels of this like you know 200-story building plus. And the people that lived there, it was abandoned building, and they were harnessing the rainwater to have like vines and other things grow, so they were making their own wine and stuff. And the players were like, this is badass. Like they didn't even think about like an urban jungle of sorts in this building. And today there's a big push there's a big push uh to make urban pierogies. Oh yeah. To make urbanized fruits and vegetables a real thing. And I threw that in there. They had grapes and strawberries and stuff like that. And the gray, dank gray urbanization of um chrome and steel and matte black and alloy of the city made them love this place. And they thought that they killed people over when they found this place. And they're like, we're going to live here. They've got, they're making real wool outfits because they've got like sheep living in the hallways of this building and stuff like that. And like they would shave the sheep to make wool and stuff. It was crazy. Lecrae says, but the best are Polish pierogies. I am so happy to be Polish, these delicious pierogies. I am a fan of pierogies here, and I am not. Oh, it came up as a smiley face. That's awesome. I'm so happy to be Polish, delicious pierogies. That's cool. That's awesome. That's fun. And thank you very much for being here, by the way, you guys. We got to talk about like the similarities and differences between our cultures. I love stuff like that. Zamara says, I can see the poor neighborhoods of cyberpunk being surprisingly green. Damn it, you said the same thing. With people growing and trading herbs and spices as currency, and the upper spires making a thing of cooking without seasoning to show that they have the wealth to eat food as it is naturally. I'm with you so much on that. Could you imagine how much like status you would have just to eat like a fresh apple or like broccoli? You know what I mean? Like that would just be people are like, what? Are you about to eat that raw? And they're like, hell yeah. They're like, damn. Want some rat burger or some crunchy bugs to snack? Hey, I already talked about types of bugs we'd eat in space, some insects we'd eat in space. I showed a little list of like mealworms and roaches and ants and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of protein. I made wine even from beetroot. It is quite good. Really? As long as it's got sugars you can break down, but wine from beetroot? Beets. Ugh. Z says, as a fellow poor person, I dehydrate everything. You could easily have rat and roach catchers selling their goods for the herbs to season it and make it taste more edible. I agree with that. And there's also an African, oh, what is it? I know you guys know this. There's an African plant or herb, and it has been turned into a pill form that you can put on your tongue, and it makes sour foods taste sweet so that you can eat foods that normally would seem inedible, but they start to taste good. And there are tribes that they eat one thing to get the taste on the tongue to eat the other thing that is tasteless. Yeah, beets are hella sweet, and that kind of wine would be very sweet and have an earthy spice to it. Ah, okay, okay. I have heard of sweetening things with beets, but I think my mind is centered around like pickled beets, and I can't separate the beet from the pickling of the damn thing. Sorry, that's just my own foible right there. But yeah. Okay. I want to share out something. Let's see. let's see. I got another page done in my document. It took me a while. It took me, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 hours, I think, to do it. And so yeah. Nebula, conundrums, baggage, convictions. I know I put it here. Bricks, I'm still working on. There it is. Okay. We're gonna share this out instead. So almost out of here. So hard turn over into Obsidian Star, the tabletop role playing game that I'm working on publicly, and it'll be for free. It is. This is one page of a number of pages. Let me show you this grid work here. These are pages in the Obsidian Star document that I'm working on. It starts off with the character sheet. I'm going to shift this. There's a starship character sheet that I'm going to work on. I might change out the hexes. Doesn't matter. Anyway, and I'm working on layout and using a black, white, red layout with a watermark attached to it. And of course, there's some other things. There's some color images here and different types of jackets that people can be that I need to work on. So it's pretty extensive. So it is big. And there's even some maps here that I put it at the end of the document from Dyson Logos. And anyway, but I did want to point out, I know I'm going very quickly. I do want to point out this page right here. So let's get rid of that habitat page. And it took me a while to lay this out because I had to get the words right and so they can fit in. But this is a 144 point space habitat building table. So you roll a d12 and then you roll another d12 if you'd like to. Ooh, there's a gap here. Bam. If you'd like to, and or you can roll on any of them that you see fit. But yeah, all of these are different different categories using d12s because I find the d12 to be very easy to. I find me visually, I can read a d12 list very quickly, and it also gives me the maximum number of random options while still being able to see it. While if the system was a d20 system, you'd have 20 options. But I feel like 20 visually goes off the grid. So 12 in one long list is good. And then a 6x6 grid also works as well. And I was able to fit a 12x12 on here. So 12 different lists for 12 different things. So each letter of habitats has 2 random tables associated with it. So there are two lists for H, A, B, I, T, and S. So I didn't go in order of it, but I just picked like, that kind of thing. But anyway, so we have hostilities, black market, we've got secrets, we have hazards, bureaucracy, society. Ooh, this needs to move down. Society, we have agendas, inventory and investments, technology, and lastly, adversaries and allies, intrigue, and travel, in no particular order. Let's see. Young beetroots are quite nice, and it makes dry wine heavy taste, like wines from Georgia. Country, not Georgia, from Georgia on my mind. Yeah. Oh, okay, I get it. Yes, here in the States, we do have a Georgia. Make a fresh root medley like carrots, beets, potatoes, sweet potatoes one day, baked. You will see. Oh. Okay, all right. Nice to see you all. It's been so long, and I've missed you all a lot. Regardless, remember. Oh, and there's a comment. Your freaking comment. Did I read the whole thing? Yes, I did. Okay, I just want to make sure. Woo, woo, woo. But anyway, hard segue into Obsidian Star. So I wanted to share that out, and let me put this back into grid view. So it's a little bit difficult to see a lot of these things. A lot of these pages are placeholders or set up so you can't see them publicly. Like we have starships here, kind of give you an example what some starships look like. We have some gun prawn here, of course. People, you can see this doesn't even look right. We've got bricks. I'm gonna make 100 like habitats, which I already had written down in my notebook, and I wanted to get this down. I had to like shrink down the wording and things like that to get it to fit. Um, but I'm going to do 144 thing of random bricks. Here we have some different layout, like with languages. Thank you very much, Drew. How pockets work. I'm going to create a thing here for enemies. I got to change the layout on this. Baggage, different types of baggage. How loss and damage work. Convictions, like the alignment system, how that works. It's not really an alignment. Well, motivation system. Death and deletion, things like that. Vitals and whatnot. And from afar, you can actually see the like, how I'm putting in the little things in the background. Just let me know if it works or it's blocking the wording too much or something. I put a big giant one here in approach, how you can see like the spiral and stuff like that. Just I don't know, just artistically trying to make it look a bit different and interesting so that the eye keeps moving around. Same thing about rolling dice. Here on rolling dice, I super enlarged a part of the character sheet that's on the other side here, and took that and then super enhanced it to show like what happens when you roll the dice, whether you're using force, flex, or fulcrum to roll the dice, and things like that. And then of course we have our classic character sheet. Ooh, that's super zoomed in. And so we have our character sheet and how it works, the 2D12 art and science system and things like that. So guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. Nice to see you all. Huh? It deleted it. It made we were the other day, you guys were challenging the type in a comment, why is it being deleted kind of thing. I don't have any parameters set up as to why things are being deleted or not. I know that depending on what region you're at, you could be having comments blocked or held or deleted because of however the algo works. So I'm not exactly sure of that. And I'm using a system called Restream, and Restream might also have something to do with that as well. So it could be YouTube, it could be your region, it could be Restream and that kind of thing. So I may not see it. And like, for example, here, let me put this in overlay. So I can go into overlay mode, and then the comments arrive here in the overlay mode. And see here in the overlay mode, it hasn't, like, for example, I'm at the end, but the overlay hasn't moved. There it is. Oh yeah, it goes, it's opposite. So now that I'm I've got to get rid of, let's do this. Let's get rid of can't see the comments. So I need to get rid of, close this out. There we go. There we go. Oh, got to get rid of the other thing too. There we go. Now it can be seen. Now there we go. All right. Anyway, that is all we have for today. Guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. And also yeah, check out some cyberpunk stories or whatever if you want. Colorful background. Okay, Discord plug. It's in Discord. Okay. Let's see. What looks better? It's the blue. Let's go with a more analytical background, that kind of thing. So guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, I see you put googly eyes in and it won't show. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. It didn't go up beside me, but it did do the other thing. The only reason I don't normally put in the overlay is just because I know you guys are like on mobile devices. You're maybe traveling, or you got spell check and things like that. And it's more important for me to display your comments as they come across, rather than just having to put them up. So I really appreciate it. Also, I didn't want to make it look like there's favoritism or anything like that. So, but anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me have this discussion about cyberpunk and that kind of thing. Tuesdays and Thursdays are specifically for Obsidian Star. Other than that, we will have many, many other types of things to go on. See, nah, that doesn't really look good. Yeah, you can't even see the Obsidian Star in the background. Oh well. Yeah. just seeing what some backgrounds look like. You really can't see them unless I'm live. So I don't want to do that. And this is an old one. I don't know. Eh. Let's go back here. So thank you guys very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your participation. It really helps out the channel. Also, if you want to defeat the onslaught of the algos, please like, share, subscribe. It really helps. Comment and things. Zamar says, love with your heart, and for all else, throw off the shackles of your corporate state overlords. One rat burger at a time. Advertisement paid for by the corporate state of. you gotta say the small print very quickly without emotion. Yeah, you got to do that a little bit too. So, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and we will begin this yet again Monday morning. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility.